It's at bay. The Tampa Bay Bucks, Super Bowl 55.
Whoops. Hello and welcome to the Bucks Banter podcast. I am your host, Collin, and we are back for another division preview. I am joined by my beautiful co-hosts, Scott Capron and Bohdan Yard. How's it going, gentlemen?
Hey, man. Pretty good.
Feeling good, man.
It's Friday night. It's Friday night as we record this, so you may hear some ice cubes jingling about in the background. Don't be alarmed.
Yeah, it's also how you can tell we all have lives as it's Friday night and we're super willing to record. So let's do it.
Yeah, maybe some better moods than our early week Monday episode that we do live for Bucks Report. So this will, of course, be available for viewing on our YouTube channel, Bucks Banter. And, of course, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Today, we have done one division preview so far. We're sticking in the AFC. So in our first division preview, we covered the AFC South. Today, we are going to be discussing the AFC East. Lots to talk about, lots of intriguing storylines in this division, as there really is in every division in football. So I don't want to waste any time, boys. I want to get right into it. Let's start by talking about the New York Jets.
Oh, I think you're the first person that's ever said that.
Yeah.
I don't know, just throwing it out there, yeah.
Yeah, you're probably, I mean, I'm sure some people in New York, but...
Nope.
So,
they think they're in New Jersey.
Yeah, they're still talking about the Giants.
Yeah.
So, of course, the Jets last season were 2-14, second worst record in football. Haven't made the playoffs since 2010. And in terms of their offseason, what they've done, they added some nice pieces. I mean, some veteran quality talent. They brought in Carl Lawson to add some pop to their edge rushing corps. So that's a great move. Corey Davis, if he's able to stay on the field, and of course he's already been hurt, would in theory provide a good veteran, solid presence as a receiver. I wouldn't exactly call it anything to write home about. Linebacker Gerard Davis, defensive back LaMarcus Joyner. Those are some of the guys who they've brought into the mix through free agency. They lost two solid linebackers, Terrell Basham and Jordan Jenkins, who were solid. But also the thing with the Jets you got to remember is they had a really good draft, at least according to my observations. I really like what they did. Zach Wilson, of course, was a second overall selection, quarterback out of BYU. With their second selection, they took Elijah Vera Tucker, the offensive lineman out of USC. That was a major steal. And then they had two more steals as well with their next two picks. They took Elijah Moore, incredibly productive receiver out of Ole Miss. He slipped out of the first round, so that was the Jets' gain there. They desperately needed to add some punch at the wide receiver position. And then in the fourth round, they landed Michael Carter, the running back out of North Carolina. I've talked about each of these players. We have talked about each of these players individually on some of our draft episodes. But those are, I would say, that's an even more impressive haul than what they did in free agency.
Yeah, funny thing about their draft, they got Michael Carter, in the fourth round. I think in the fifth or the sixth, they got Michael Carter the second.
The DB, right?
DB, yeah. So it looks like they drafted a father and son combo. But if the Jets didn't have to play any games, I would say they're a lot better because on paper they did everything right. They won the offseason, and for this division at least, they and it's tough knowing that what the Patriots did in the offseason as well too. But we'll get to that later. But the Jets had a great draft. They signed guys that weren't too out of pocket from a price standpoint, and then they let go of some guys who I think a lot of Jets fans would have liked to see those linebackers that they let go. Maybe get a second look from Robert Saleh and see how they do in that offense or that defense. But not a huge loss coming off of where they were, like you said it. yeah, two wins last year. It's not a lot to improve on.
And sorry, Scott, before you go, they're bringing back C.J. Mosley, right, who opted out for COVID. So that's a tremendous linebacker they have coming back.
He's never played a full game for them either, right? I think he got injured. He pulled a groin at the very first game that he signed with them, and then he didn't come back. I think he tried to come back from that, but then they shut him down in 2019. Then 2020 he opted out.
Some franchises, like how Jetsy is that for that to happen, right?
Yeah.
But in Bo, as you were touching on there, there's basically nowhere to go but up. It's not like they were 5-11 and missed the playoffs again. Like they were 2-14, and did they lose their first 13? I think they were 0-13, and they somehow beat the Rams. Yeah, it was the Rams. So
they only had 2 wins last year. Like Week 15 against the Rams, Goff was super bad in that game. He had like a 20 QBR.
Underdog.
Yeah, and then the Browns, they beat the Browns somehow. Week 16, back-to-back wins.
That was either
Baker had like 3 fumbles in that game. Like they just kept on giving them the ball. So yeah, they were. I was looking at their DVOAs. They were 21st on defense, which better than you would expect, but they were probably just on the field way too often to ever be better than that. And then 31st on offense.
Yeah.
They were overall 32nd in DVOA in the league, so the worst in the league last year. Even worse than the Jacksonville Jaguars, who only had 1 win. So it speaks to how bad they were. So, yeah, the coaching change is big for them. Robert Saleh coming in. Hopefully have a completely revamped defense. Robert Saleh also brought in Mike LaFleur, who is Matt LaFleur's younger brother.
No shit.
They have really weird San Francisco, Green Bay, and the Rams are just like all of their coaches are all friends. Like Sean McVay was in Matt LaFleur's wedding party. Robert Saleh worked for Sean McVay. Robert Saleh is now a head coach who hired Mike LaFleur, who was on the 49ers as their OC before this. Like, really interesting the way that they operate. But yeah, I think we're going to be talking about those 5 coaches all the time.
Have you guys tuned in at all to the Flying Coach podcast? Did we mention that last episode? I think briefly.
I don't know if you did, but yeah, I have it. I listened to the one with Cliff Kingsbury the other weekend.
Me too.
Did you hear the Tom Brady story?
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was awesome.
Pretty cool. Apparently, I actually didn't watch the whole episode, so I'm more paraphrasing from what I've heard. But sounds like they kind of turned it up the one night, had a bunch of drinks, and then Kingsbury woke up the next morning, maybe at 8, and went for a cruise in a golf cart or something around the property. Where were they? They're in
They're at a wedding.
They're in at a wedding in the Bahamas or something. I don't know where exactly, but
you know what? It was where Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, and Justin Thomas used to always do their boys' spring break golf trip kind of thing. But I guess it got devastated by a hurricane or whatever. Anyway, they rebuilt it and then they had the wedding there. Sorry.
Yeah, from the podcast. Yeah. I know you said you didn't listen to it, but Kingsbury describes it as the ultimate adult playground. Coming from Kingsbury, I don't know if you watch the whole podcast, McVay's just ripping into him pretty much the whole time, just being
Kingsbury knows his way around an adult playground too.
They're not shy about bringing that up at all. So anyways, they get after it, right? And I'll let you finish the story.
No, I was just going to say Kingsbury actually has an adult playground behind his fireplace at his Arizona mansion. Yeah. What is going on with the fire? Anyways, that was a sweet story for sure.
To be a young, attractive head coach in the NFL wouldn't be so bad, would it?
Seriously.
Yeah, they're below 500 in college, and then get the call up to coach the number 1 pick at quarterback. That's pretty good.
I was trying to see if we could mention Cliff Kingsbury's name without just attacking him, but we can't seem to do it as a group.
I'm trying. I have a lot of after listening to that podcast. I have a lot of respect for Cliff Kingsbury.
I like him. Seems like a great dude. I'm still surprised by his like lack of originality on offense and his conservative play calling in a lot of cases. And his record at Texas Tech speaks for itself. I'm sorry. Well, I was just about to say I'm not going to apologize, but I did. But now I'm taking it back because there is room for criticism there. But he does seem like a sweet guy. So there you go.
Yeah.
So if I can finish the
10
story,
Vegas, buddy.
if I can finish the story from the podcast I didn't even listen to, that would be appreciated.
No.
So apparently Kingsbury's pretty hungover, without saying it outright, and he's just like cruising around on the golf cart trying to like, you know, wake up a little bit, and he sees Brady just drenched in sweat on like a lawn bowling course, like doing a plyometric workout at like before 9 a.m. or whatever.
He's doing
like,
dropbacks. He's doing dropbacks with a speed belt on. So there's like a tension cord as he's dropping back, and he's just like nailing every throw, according to Kingsbury. And Kingsbury's just like, I don't understand what's going on here.
Oh, what a psycho Brady is, and I love it.
Yeah.
And Kingsbury's like, everyone was smashed. Like Brady, I saw Brady drinking heavily. Like basically, like he threw. Not that he was throwing anyone under the bus, but he's just like, we're in this adult playground. Everyone's wasted. Nobody has their kids. Like everybody's going crazy.
Brady,
Yeah, I heard he was very diplomatic.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, I said Brady turned down a strawberry daiquiri naturally. We've had that album before, so it didn't want to
straight
start.
tequila, straight rum.
Got it.
So you're right. You guys are right though. Like they can't do any worse, right? They're gonna win more than 2 games. You have to assume, because they have made improvements. Like they've had a nice off season based on. I mean, it's not hard because they had to do something to improve. They've done that. I absolutely love Mekhi Becton, their young franchise left tackle. Mentioned CJ Mosley coming back. I'm really like, it's funny, the whole in terms of Zach Wilson, just like leading up to the draft. I don't know about you guys, but he really it was so early understood that he was going to be the pick at 2. It's almost like he didn't get talked about. Like you heard Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and even Trevor Lawrence. Those names were constantly being discussed, but he just kind of slid into number 2, even though he's going to New York, wasn't talked about much. I'm really excited to see what he can do. I didn't watch a lot of him at BYU. Obviously, he has pretty special arm talent and all the physical tools. And all indications are he's, you know, a great team player and a good leader. And coming out of camp there, you've heard Elijah Moore praising the way he throws the ball and his command of his teammates and stuff. So I'm really excited to see what he can do.
It's super wild that we went through that whole draft process with him, and he was just labeled as either Rodgers or Mahomes by basically every pundit, like that he has that type of arm talent, and we just never talked about him. Like he's just kind of like, we're just like, oh yeah, he's gonna go number 2. Like if he's really that good, like why didn't he go number 1? And I don't know. Like yeah, I have those same questions about him. I'm interested to see how good he actually is.
But Bo, I think Collin's right with just when the pick becomes so obvious, you know, 5-6 weeks before the draft, whenever it was, you know, basically set in stone with the Jets taking Wilson, there are just so many other guys and potential trades and whatever to talk about in the draft. It's like, all right, yeah, file that away. Like, no big issues with Wilson at 2. All right, great. Let's not spend any time on it. I'm pretty skeptical, to be completely honest. Like, do I think he's going to be better than Sam Darnold right away? No, I don't think so. And after looking at who their backups are, they don't have some reliable, you know, I don't know. Well, you know, we were talking about Houston in the last pod, like a Tyrod Taylor or
even a Mike Glennon or something.
Or, you know, Ryan Fitzpatrick, for example.
Dalton.
Nothing that, who is it? Was Josh Morgan or was one of
James Morgan and Mike
James
White.
Morgan? And anyway, just, you know, they do not have great quarterback depth. So we're saying there's nowhere to go but up for them. But like, if he struggles, then it could be a level off. It could be the same. Like they could be 3-14, right? Like I don't think that's absolutely nuts. But now, if he pops and he really connects with Salah and, you know, the quarterback coach infusion, which we've seen happen before, you know, gives them a jolt of life into the team, then yeah, maybe they could be a real team. But like, we got to see it from them. And maybe I'm not anti Zach Wilson or anything, but it's very hard. It's very hard to be really good, and it's not like he's going to a great team. So I don't know where you guys are at with where you're actually expecting them to fall, like where in the win range, where you would what you would call their record.
Yeah, like in terms of like predicting their record, I don't know. Like you're saying, it's not a team I have a super good feel for this season. I don't think they're going to be good. I just think they're going to be better than 2 wins. I think they're going to squeak out a couple more wins at least. But you're totally right. It all is going to depend on Zach Wilson and how quickly he can adapt to the competition in the league. I mean, they're depending on a lot of young players at key positions on offense. That's for sure. In terms of their offensive linemen, receiver. Their weaknesses are also like running back, tight end is not an impressive area, and a good running back or a good running game can often be a young quarterback's best friend, right? But I mean, I love Michael Carter, their 4th round pick. They've also got who do they got there at running back? Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, we were just talking about that,
formerly from the Niners. But both of those running backs are change of pace second guys. Like they don't have necessarily a durable workhorse. So that's kind of a redundant pairing there, if you ask me. So they don't necessarily have a dependable running back whom they can rely on right away.
Yeah.
I see that as a potential concern. They were good. They were 12th against the rush last year, and again without C.J. Mosley. So with Robert Saleh coming in here, like they're going to want to stuff the run. So I think they'll be good there. But they were 28th against the pass, and I'm not so sure how they added LaMarcus Joyner, but I don't know how much they've really improved their pass defense. So they're going to have plenty of holes, and they are not going to be very good this year.
No.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And just LaMarcus Joyner point, I was reading up on him a little bit. Some of the issues that a lot of the analysts that know way more about football than me, LaMarcus Joyner was playing the nickel for the Raiders quite often. His natural position is a safety, and Robert Saleh is basically saying he's going back to safety. He's going to be one of those versatile defenders, kind of use him as like a gadget defender, but he's going to be mainly in the middle of the field playing safety over top. So hopefully that shores up a little bit of the issues of their secondary. But you're right, they haven't really addressed what their secondary is going to how their secondary is going to get better, other than the natural progression of a guy like Bryce Hall. They have this guy Bless Austin who went from basically undrafted to starting games, and now he's their number 2 corner on their team. So if they keep on seeing some progression from him, maybe there's a little bit more of a higher ceiling for that secondary. But in terms of their season, I had 2 scenarios for them. They're 3-14, basically no improvement from last year. Wilson's underwhelming, and they just don't have enough weapons to actually compete at all in this division or in the NFL in general. But is their ceiling maybe 6-11? They're the tough out every week. We just talked about their defense being 12th against the run. They actually have a pretty nice front 7, front 8 maybe.
I like their D tackle pairing of Sheldon Rankins and Quinnen Williams.
Quinnen Williams is awesome. I was just about to say that. Quinnen Williams is really good. And bring in Gerard Davis, and with C.J. Mosley coming back too,
Carl Lawson on the edge.
Yeah, and Carl Lawson on the edge too. They could have.
They have stuff on defense. They have.
Yeah,
stuff
they could have.
Against the run, easily. Against the run, I'm not feeling good about their back end.
Yeah, but maybe you add Carl Lawson. Maybe you're getting to the quarterback a little bit more reliably now, and you're always going to be tough against the run with those 7 guys up front. And maybe there's an improvement on the pass defense as well with a little bit extra pressure up front. So ceiling, I said maybe 6-11.
I can jive with those 2 scenarios, best case, worst case scenario, Bo. I would agree. I think that's solid. I also think we should move on to the next team in the AFC East. Let's take a look at the Miami Dolphins. They've had a busy offseason. They acquired Will Fuller, wide receiver from the Houston Texans, initially from Notre Dame. Will Fuller is an interesting piece to add. I actually really like their receivers now. Some health concerns between Will Fuller and Devontae Parker, but if they're all healthy, adding in Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver out of Alabama that they drafted in the first round, over Penei Sewell, interestingly enough, where they do have a pretty glaring need on the offensive line still. Sorry, I guess I've just transitioned into addressing their draft. They came away with Jalen Waddle in the first, and then with their second first round pick, they took Jalen Phillips, who's arguably the best pass rusher in the draft. At least he's got an interesting backstory, which we've talked about on the pod before, so we don't need to get into that. They took a Canadian boy for the first safety taken in the draft as well. So they did a nice job spreading out their picks, right? Their first 4 picks went wide receiver, defensive end, safety, and then they got a really high-quality offensive tackle as well, Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame in round 2. Yeah. So they did a great job addressing key positions of need in the draft. Sorry, and Javon Holland is Canadian. I don't know if I said that, who was the first safety drafted. So that's cool for us Canadians to see. So I love what Chris Greer did in the draft. Again, added Will Fuller amongst some other guys. Interesting. They lost Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's now the starter with Washington. So that's his 33rd NFL franchise he's starting for. But so interesting. Chris Greer cutting bait with Kyle Van Noy, who they signed as a free agent to a 4-year, $51 million deal last offseason, who was great in New England's defense under Bill Belichick. But when they obviously were not impressed with what they saw his first year in Miami, and they couldn't find a trade partner. So they were forced to release him, and he's actually since rejoined the Patriots.
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, they had a weird, like, I know that you said that you liked their offseason. I don't know. I'm not high.
I like their draft.
Their draft. Okay, yeah. So Will Fuller just either injured or suspended when you are really counting on him.
They're not really like it'll be like they don't need him to have a good passing offense if Tua can take a step though. Like Waddle's that good. Like Waddle's very good.
But if Fuller's good, and stays on the field, like he can add so much. That's why he's so effing tantalizing every single season, right? Like he's that guy every year. Is he gonna pop or is he gonna play 4 games? I don't know.
I'll be honest, like I don't love their offense. When I was just looking at their roster, it just doesn't hop off the page for me. The other thing when I was prepping for this, so they had Chan Gailey calling their plays and their offensive coordinator last year. He retired in January, like pretty unexpectedly. Brian Flores said he expected all of his coaches to be back this year, but Chan Gailey retired. And do you guys know who they replaced him with?
No, I don't actually.
Not off the top of my head, no.
It's super weird. They replaced him with 2 guys, Eric Stutzfeld and George Godsey. Both guys just off of like internal hires, but they have a dual offensive coordinator set up for this year. They're not sure who's going to be calling the plays yet.
Well, how could that go wrong?
There's some like red flags there for me with the Dolphins on their offensive side of the ball. I love their defense. I think Brian Flores like a very good coach, very good defensive coach. But I don't know if they have a handle on what's going to be going on with their offense.
That's nuts.
That's concerning, to say the least.
It's super concerning. It's a red flag, and like maybe it's not. Maybe Brian Flores knows there's like a culture thing. Brian Flores knows exactly what he's doing, and these 2 guys are gonna one's gonna call plays in the first and the third, and the other's gonna call plays in the second and the fourth, or they switch at halftime. Who knows?
Maybe the only way he was able to recruit them is to promise each of them the OC duties, and then when they showed up, they realized they're both the OC.
But like they like there's like a press like a news release being like these are co-offensive coordinators, which I don't remember the last time that's happened. Like that's just super concerning to me. But I don't know. It's Miami. There's some sort of culture thing that goes along with that type of decision. Brian Flores thinks it's going to be completely fine.
This is like The Office where Jim and Michael are the co-managers, and Oscar's saying it's like, tell me a country that succeeds without 2 presidents, or how Catholicism would be without the popes. Pick one. Brian Flores, you're gonna have to pick one. I don't know. Oh man, yeah. That
off the top of my head, like that's like number one. That's like the first strike on Brian Flores to me because I think he's done everything right in his and his first year in Miami was really good, way outside of above projections. So they were 12th in DVOA overall last year, 11th on
You're a good
defense.
team.
Yeah, 18th on offense, 6th on special teams. Their special teams was really good last year. They had some super tough losses to the Seahawks and the Chiefs, but really they just like beat or lost the teams that they were supposed to beat or
Well,
lose to.
and they had a winning record without like committing to a quarterback, which is a terrible position to be in the NFL. I mean, for both quarterbacks involved, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I gain respect for that guy every season just because how he can handle these controversies over and over without creating any sort of rift in the organization, especially in the quarterback room. He manages to still be a valued mentor to whoever the quarterback is. Really speaks to that guy's character, man. He's like, that's really cool shit. But at the same time, it's like it drives me nuts when like make a goddamn decision. Who is your quarterback for their sake, for the other players' sake? But that won't be an issue this year, obviously. And I think Tua is one of the biggest question marks, not just in this division or not just on the Miami Dolphins, but in the entire league, because Tua Tagovailoa is a cherished piece of history at the University of Alabama for how he performed, how he stepped in there. And was a huge prospect coming out, right? Like, and then obviously he had the bad hip injury, which turned out to be not quite as bad as everyone thought, I guess. But you kind of give him that first year to figure it out. But that being said, seeing him on the field was not very encouraging for Tua backers. And I just mentioned Tua supporters. I just mentioned, he was in a tough situation there with the lack of clearly defined role. But Scott, I know you've been a Tua guy for a while. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, do you agree that this is a huge, almost make or break year for him? And do you think he will make or break?
Well, so I totally agree, and I would have thought absolute no brainer. Put him in the NFL after that. That championship game against Georgia. Like, he's ready. Like, that's what it looked like to me, and he just looked overwhelmed every time I saw him on the field last year. And that was something I was not expecting at all. Like, he's so smart. He's such a hard worker. You know what I mean? But I feel like it just got to him. And I don't know about you guys, and maybe this is anecdotal because, I probably watched 5 Dolphins games last year, from start to finish. But I thought he was not driving throws like he was throwing almost scared. Like he was trying to feed the ball into spots as opposed to just get the ball there, which, even though he played in the SEC, he played at the highest level, there's even less time to get the ball there. It's even smaller windows in the NFL, right? It's almost like he didn't trust himself to really force the ball, not force, but like get the ball into these spots. And I saw him throw some of the softest picks you've ever seen. Like, I
totally agree. I totally agree with your take there.
Like you're playing like lob ball or something. You know what I mean? Like you're playing 3-pitch, and that is not something I was expecting at all. And maybe that was a confidence thing. Maybe this year he's going to feel more ready to plant his right foot in the ground and like drive some in. But the combination of not taking off and running very much, even though he's capable, not looking super comfortable, and then just the lack of decisiveness with his arm. I was super surprised. I hate to say that it's a make or break year because it's his second year, and really, we should give him a chance. But people don't get chances, right? Like, if he sucks this year, then they're going to draft a quarterback next year because guess what? They're going to go 5-12, and they're going to be in the top 10. Right? Yeah. Like, there's no patience for these guys.
No, it's not how it works in the NFL. You're right. No, like, that's not
criticism. I'm just saying how it goes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I would piggyback off of that. Like, the thing about Tua that you definitely see every time you watch him play was he was hesitant, and he would take the safe throws, even though you would think he kind of has the arm talent to get those big plays off.
I thought so too, Bo.
Super risk averse, and and when I was going through it all, I was like, you know what, it might be really good for him to have Jalen Waddle there, just so that he remembers what it's like to have a super open receiver, because there's a difference between NFL open and Alabama Open, because like Alabama Open was like wide open. They had like
literally
unbelievable wide receivers every year he was there. So that made the job a little bit easier for him to just be like, okay, I can sling this thing to like 50, 40 yards down the field. But yeah.
And to be fair, like we don't know how much of an effect having a real live NFL starter breathing down his neck or whatever, how it affected him, right? Because we didn't know who was going to start some of the game, like a couple times I remember, and I don't know, like that's not easy. As much as you're always supposed to roll with it, be a good teammate, blah blah blah. It's like if you're the quarterback, then you're playing every down, and if you're not playing, then you're not playing at all, right?
You know what should help. You know what should help the young quarterback though is just having 2 offensive coordinators. So you have twice as many people in your room, one in each year, and to make things better, I've heard that Eric Studesville is a run first guy, and George Godsey's a pass first guy. So
good.
We'll see if they're both on the headset. One headset.
Now that we're going through this, I was excited to bring up that red flag, but like I guess Flores has a history of this. He couldn't pick a quarterback last year, and now he can't pick an offensive coordinator. Like it's a huge red flag. And when I was looking at their roster, then I was considering their like who's in charge of their offense and who knows, because there's the 2 offensive coordinators, and there's also Brian Flores who's evaluating both of them. Like even if they do have 2 offensive coordinators for this whole year, they won't have 2 next year. So one of those guys is coaching for their job right now. So, or they both are really. But
so maybe Tua's indecisiveness is just a reflection of his head coach's character.
Whoa.
Well, yeah. Well, it's risk averse. This kind of feels like the most YOLO like decision making Brian Flores could make is just like, fuck it, well, I'll just have 2 offensive coordinators. We'll figure it out at some point.
With Flores, I feel like there's something there. Anyway, let's 9.5 is the over/under win total for the Dolphins. What would you guys say?
After this conversation, I want to say under, knowing they're playing the NFC South. Although I guess the NFC South isn't necessarily the powerhouse division in football that it was in years previous. But here's the other thing, right? The AFC East has a very light strength of schedule, which is worth considering when you discuss like projecting how they might finish. So it's 9.5. They have the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL, according to Mike Clay. Oh, wow. They have a tough schedule out of the gate, though. Big challenges out of the gate, which could really set the tone for the season. They got New Orleans. They open with New Orleans. Then they go Buffalo. Then they got Buffalo, Tampa Bay, and Baltimore. So that's actually a brutal stretch to open the year. And if they struggle out of the gate, they could be screwed.
They take 1 and 3.
I honestly think like we're gonna get to the end. Probably the last division preview we do is going to be the NFC South, right? But I think the Saints are going to be one of the toughest outs at the start of the year. Like, I would not want to be a team playing the Saints in the first, 3 weeks just because you're going to have no idea what's going on. Like, Sean Payton in this, weird lab just basically being like, I don't know if it's going to be Jameis. I don't know if it's going to be Tavon. It's just going to be
I love how we're criticizing Brian Flores for his lack of cool stance on who his quarterback is, and we're pretty much applauding Sean Payton for the same thing.
But I believe it'll work with Sean Payton, just because it's Sean Payton, and I think he'll use it as his advantage. Whereas quarterback play clearly was not Miami's strength last year.
I think if you're I just can't help but chime in on that. I think Sean Payton's. I think you got to start Jameis and just shuffle Taysom Hill in there. And then if Jameis goes nuclear, then sure, give Taysom Hill a chance. But I mean, he needs someone who can throw the fucking football, and Jameis can throw the football.
Dude,
I
think you nailed it the last time when you were like, whoever starts the year as their starting quarterback will not end the year as their starting quarterback. At some point, they're going to flop. Yeah. And I think the first 2 or 3 games, it could be switching back and forth, series to series. You'll have no idea what's coming.
I'm glad
Payton will have the people. Yeah, go ahead.
Feels great to have some stability at that position as a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Gotta say, nothing better than talking about other teams.
Yeah. I love how we're finishing up the Dolphins preview with Collin being very happy about having Tom Brady as the Bucs quarterback.
Yeah, I could segue into that
Very
every
on
team we
brand.
talk about.
I can just like quickly get through my like worst case, best case for them. I think their most likely is probably their worst case. So maybe I'll just do that one. 6-11. Will Fuller and Devontae Parker are injured very early in the season, and it's just another question mark here for Tua. Like they kind of tread water. You're not sure if he's the guy again, and you go into another offseason having to make a big decision, which Brian Flores isn't really equipped to do now that I'm thinking about it.
If those two guys, Fuller and Parker, are healthy, and Waddle has a good rookie year, and Tua is a league average starting quarterback, I think they're going to make the playoffs. So I know it's a lot of ifs and whatever, but like if that all happens, I can see them getting to 10-7 or 11-6 and getting that last wild card spot. Once again, a lot needs to go right, but that wouldn't shock me. Like they were good that last year; they were a real team. Like they
were really good.
They were like 17 to win or to get to the playoffs, I think, and Buffalo played everyone and beat them. But anyway,
and you know they have like arguably one of the top cornerback tandems in the league in Jason Howard and Byron Jones. So you got to mention that. Like another year playing together for those guys will help. Don't like the running back position though, Miles guy. I feel like I've just become our de facto running back guy, but that's fine with me. Miles Gaskins are starting running back. Would have been nice to see them add a little more juice to that position through the draft or somewhere. We'll see what happens there. Again, for a young quarterback, it's helpful.
I've got like one wild card here. So like my best case scenario was like maybe they go 13-4. Tua lives up to the hype. Their passing attack is like the best version of it possible. Their defense is even better than they were last year. And they go like this is the first team that like if you told me they were in the Super Bowl, I would be like, I can kind of see it. And I think we'll probably get to an episode where we kind of see it. We each go through a list of like who we think could actually make the Super Bowl and maybe play the Bucs. But yeah, the idea that Tua takes this team to the Super Bowl is like not out of the realm of possibility to me. Like everything breaking right for them and they can get there.
Shit, Jimmy G did it.
Exactly. But if I could throw one wild card before we move on to the next team, at the start of the offseason, there was a lot of hype where we thought that Miami was the favorite to get Deshaun Watson. Was there any chance that picks up again? They end up with Deshaun Watson. How does that change what you guys expect from the Miami Dolphins?
The thing sorry, Scott, you can go. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say in most circumstances, I would say you bend over backwards to get Deshaun Watson. But if they have to, then they're in trouble with Tua, obviously, right? Like unless they get an unreal trade offer right now for Deshaun or whatever, and we don't actually see Tua in this second season. But
I think it would have to be preseason, like Deshaun for Tua and a few picks.
Yeah, I think too. Like if they were really, they're riding with Tua for now. I think because they could have just instead drafted Justin Fields or Mac Jones at 6, or not traded back with the Niners in the first place, even though they would have been crazy to not accept that embarrassment of riches the Niners gave up. But yeah, we'll see. Well, I'm interested to see what happens with the Dolphins. It could certainly go either way. So now the much talked about New England Patriots. I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion. Obviously, they were the story of the offseason early on just because of the unprecedented amount of money Bill Belichick shelled out in free agency. So like Hunter Henry, 3 years, $37 million. Jonnu Smith, 4 years, $50 million. That's 2 tight ends right there. Nelson Aguilar, 2 years, 22. Kendrick Bourne, former receiver from the Niners, 3 years, 15. Matthew Judon, 4 years, $55 million, just to summarize some of those. So I just want to say this, guys, and I'm curious how you feel about it. And I feel like I'm the only one who's saying this. I think this is such an overhyped offseason. I think it's super unimpressive giving out star money to not star players. And I don't think it's automatically going to translate into like this incredible offense. Like, who are their best? Who are their receivers? Like, I just have serious. I don't know.
Throwing on the ball.
Yeah,
Like, I don't see it at all, man.
Me
Like,
neither.
I get that they get the benefit of the doubt in general. Belichick gets the benefit of the doubt. Like, I actually understand that, and maybe that's worth a win or two higher than what I would have them pegged just based on the roster. But like, I think they're very average again, and whatever they decide to do, like if Newton struggles so bad that the guy that they spent the first round pick on has to come in, like I don't know. I don't know what the best case scenario is. Is an 0-2 start and Cam sucking and then going to Jones? Is that the best case scenario? Is that the highest ceiling, or does Cam have something to take? Because I didn't like anything I saw from him last year. Football wise, not like.
Well, the first 2-3 weeks were okay.
Right. Then he got COVID, right?
As soon as he got COVID, it was over for him.
Which, okay, like that's. It affects.
I know that's the argument. If you're a Pats fan, the argument is that. But yeah, like going into this offseason, I would have never expect to find out that Bill Belichick blew the bank in free agency and drafted a quarterback in the first round. That has literally never happened before. Like it sounds like Bill Belichick signed up to like have his draft house and offseason house at like Burning Man or something. Like he is not the same guy anymore. Like it's insane.
The bang on Aguilar, I like Johnny Smith, don't get me wrong, and Hunter pretty even, but like,
for sure.
Do they change anything for you? Like,
who is the 12 personnel? It's not Aaron Hernandez and fucking Rob Gronkowski. So, you think it's going to strike fear that you have two like tier 3, tier 2 tight ends that you're overpaying? Yeah, they're solid players for sure. Just really peculiar that you're blowing your load on 2 tight ends.
Yeah. And they're
and Nelson Aguilar
blowing your load on 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank God Zuckerberg's not watching this one. This
must be a Friday show. So their over/under is 9.5, which you can basically assume is probably juiced an extra win because it's the Patriots, one of the more public teams. So let's call it 8.5 is probably the real win total. So right on 500. I think that's fair. Maybe like they couldn't score every game they were in last year was a grind, and they won. They were 7-9, but they won a couple by the skin of their teeth. I know because I bet against them so much, and they somehow won a couple games like they had no business winning.
Yeah.
But I feel like they were closer to the lower end of that 7-9 than like it's not like they got robbed and should have been 10-6 and whatever. Belichick, best coach in football history. Totally. They don't have anyone. And sorry, and I know it's kind of a lame answer, kind of a crutch or whatever. It totally depends on the quarterback play. I'm not willing to say that Newton's going to be very good. Let's see what we get from Jones if possible, but I just don't see it, I guess.
Yeah, if I'm a Pats fan, I want Mac Jones. I don't want to, and I couldn't agree with you more, Cap, about them. And I know it's more fun when we disagree, but I'm not going to pretend to disagree when I don't. I totally agree with your assessment of Cam Newton and that team. I think they got lucky as shit to win some of those games. I don't know how they stuck in them. Obviously, their defense was solid. Like, I think they were 8th against the pass last year, and that's without one of the best corners in football. Stephon Gilmore was an opt-out last season, or was it injury? I can't recall. I think he was an opt-out.
Injury.
Oh, right.
I think it was injury, yeah.
Tore his knee, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like, and I like what you're saying too, Cap, about the win total. It's got to be juiced up at least 1, knowing the public's always in love with New England, unless that's completely dissipated with Tom Brady going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not sure if anyone knew that. Back to Tom Brady.
Where does he play?
He's living in Derek Jeter's house, baby.
Oh, there you go.
Not in New York. But yeah, so anyway, I do love the Pats draft, though. I'll give that to Bill. So I just kind of ripped on their offseason in terms of free agency. And it's not that they're bad players they brought in. I think those are solid pieces, just overpaying. They're giving out too much money to a mediocre cast, which is not gonna what do they say? Turn the table. It's not gonna seal the deal.
But okay, so do you guys have Cleveland and Baltimore as playoff teams?
Yes.
And
Definitely Cleveland.
Okay. You would have Baltimore ahead of New England though in a power ranking to start the season, right?
100%.
Okay, so 2 from the AFC North, done. The Bills, let's say, as the division winner.
Yep.
I assume, would you have the Chiefs and the Chargers?
I like the Chargers better than the Pats personally.
Okay.
I don't know what their strength of schedule is yet because I haven't got there and I got to look at their schedule. But
So
on paper,
if you put the Chiefs and the Chargers in, then whoever wins the AFC South, Tennessee, let's say, so that's 6. So then New England would have to probably be better than Miami, Denver, and Pittsburgh to get a playoff spot, right? That's likely what it comes down to. Maybe they are. Maybe they're.
Yeah, like when you break it down like that, it doesn't sound super crazy.
No,
because their defense was okay last year.
Yeah, good.
But they're going to be a lot better. Like Dante Hightower coming back, I think people forgot how good of a football player that guy is. So
for sure,
he opted out for COVID-19. I think Matthew Judon has something left in the tank too. And
he's good.
Yeah, you're right about their draft as well too. Called Christian
Great
Barmore.
draft.
We love Christian Barmore. Ronnie Perkins coming off the edge too. They had a really good draft.
Dude, Ramondre Stevenson in the 4th, running back out of Oklahoma. He is legit, and that's a steal.
Exactly. And they already have Damian Harris. I have Damian Harris listed as like one of the key players for them next year because I just don't have any trust in the passing game with what we've went through with the tight ends that they paid and Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar. I'm just out on right now. But
Aguilar was pretty good last year.
I know, but that's
fair. I'm not
sucks that he has to play this year. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I could see him having like he had a contract year in my estimation is like
fair.
He's gonna regress back to the guy that he was before that. But I could see them like. I think actually their worst case scenario is that they go like 10-7. Cam Newton's revived and he's too good for Mac Jones to ever get on the field. And the Pats go into another offseason just being like, okay, well, that was okay, but what do we do with Cam Newton now? And what do we do with
did
Mac
you say
Jones?
their worst case?
Yeah. I think the worst case, not like their worst games, like obviously they could lose more games than that, but I think it would be even worse for them going forward in whatever rebuild they're in right now is if they go 10-7 and Cam Newton is like a revived version of himself and like he's too good for Mac Jones to come in.
Or he's like the 14th best starter and they eke into the playoffs. I see what you're saying. It's like so it's I
almost feel like that's the most likely thing that's going to happen is that like Cam is like okay, he's pretty good. And Mac Jones never actually gets to play, and they think that they spent their money well on all these tight ends and wide receivers, and hopefully their passing attack is like marginally better than they were last year, and it's enough to win enough games to get them into the playoffs, and there's some momentum to be like, okay, we got to keep building on this.
See, rookie or not, I think Mac Jones gives them the best chance even to game manage their way to victories. Like the way he plays, I get he's a rookie, but he's obviously a smart kid who can throw the ball, and that's his strengths are being able to understand and read defenses at a high level. So I personally think if I'm a Pats fan, I would prefer Mac Jones get the reins sooner than later because I think the way Bill's building this roster is he wants to have an elite defense and enough skill guys to just get the ball done who can catch the damn ball and pound the ball like Harris. I agree, he's a good running back, man. I like him. I'm really surprised we forgot to bring his name up just because running backs get lost in New England because they use so many. But he was really solid last year, especially towards the end of the season.
But my question is like, do we think Mac Jones has the ability to be better than Tua was or is?
I think you have to say he has the potential because we have a rookie season or a full season of Tua to evaluate, and it wasn't that pretty as we talked about.
Yeah, that's true.
But of course, then ironically, obviously Tua was better than him at Alabama. It's not like Mac Jones was ever beating him out. And also, I'd like to say for this podcast's sake that we're going to refer to him exclusively by his birth name, Michael McCorkle Jones, because this Mac Jones, it's all.
Sorry, say it again. Michael what?
Michael McCorkle Jones, of course. Can't believe he doesn't go by that like full thing, or just Mike Jones. But yeah, that's how I'll be referring to him going forward. I don't know. We'll see. It's such an odd place for a franchise to be with the 30 or 31-year-old. Cam's probably he might be 32 now. Yeah. Former star, still shows flashes. Can he do it? Can he not? Or do you just like cut bait, right? And then It's not the Bengals that we're talking about. It's not some other. It's not the Bears, some franchise that never does anything. Like it's the Patriots, right? Are they gonna just accept another season of mediocre quarterback play that leads to 8 and 9 and me cashing my under ticket? Like I really hope then that's what happens.
Yeah, I'll be having an under ticket too, I think, the more we've talked about it. But Bill does have the longest leash in the league. Like he's not going anywhere.
Whatever he wants.
So he doesn't feel that pressure, I'm saying, compared to these other franchises where the heat's on the head coach. Like Bill ain't firing himself.
I maybe I'm on an island then when we get to our rankings for the year, but I just kind of trust the infrastructure in New England. I need to see them. Like if they're bad this year, then I'll believe that everything's over in New England.
Fair. I thought last year was enough for me. Like I watched them and it's like they had no use. They had absolutely nothing to give anyone, and the fact that they went 7 and 9 was like a miracle. But
they just had no players too.
Yeah. So I also understand that give Cam a COVID-free season and like he's not.
Yeah.
I think Cam's arm's dead.
Well, if that's the case, then
that's the scariest part of this. For
Lamar Jackson would beat him in an accuracy in a throwing competition.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So on the Pats, if I got to side with one of you guys, I'm siding with this guy.
Yeah, go for it.
Mr. McCorkle or whatever he goes by now.
Mac. So he goes by Mac. I don't know. Michael.
Yeah, Mac. It's short for McCorkle.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we not know that? It seems so second nature. Of course.
All right. Let's move along to the final team that we haven't discussed in the division in the AFC East. That is the Buffalo Bills. Coming off a really exciting 13-3 season. They beat the Colts narrowly, 27-24 in the wild card round. Dominated the Ravens 17-3 in the divisional round, cruised their way right into the AFC Championship game where they lost by 14, 38-24 to the Kansas City Chiefs, who eventually ended up losing to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just felt like I have to just say Tom Brady somewhere. So
hey, every team.
Yeah, right.
That was super. Like that game was like for the Bills. It just didn't seem like something was off. Like I remember them giving up like a bunch of fourth down, like settling for field goals. Where
they did something nuts.
No, you're right. It was the field goals. It was settling for field goals.
Yeah, they just kept on and I don't. When I think of Josh Allen and the year that he had last year, I don't think of settling ever.
No, that was scared. It's like, and I'm sorry to bring this back to Bucs, but think about when Tampa was playing Green Bay in the NFC title game, end of the half. What does Bucko Bruce, no risk it, no biscuit do? You have confidence in your guys. He sends Scotty Miller, risks it all to it was amazing. But that's the contrast.
Yeah, you know what you have with Tampa Bay there, because they're also like, we're playing Aaron Rodgers, we have to score to win, whereas the Bills went the complete opposite direction. They're just like, okay, well, we're just going to manage this game like it's fourth down again, let's kick a field goal, we're in the red zone. Like that's just not the way the playoff, like there's a difference between playoff football. I know they got 2 wins in the playoffs last year, but yeah,
to be fair, Bo, it's not like the Bills were playing the AFC version of Aaron Rodgers or anything like that. They're just some guy. I want to say his name is Paul Mahomes. He's new to the league. It was an abomination. I would have fired McDermott after the game. I'm not even kidding.
Hopefully hopefully that changes his philosophy and he learned from that, because I'm really glad you brought that up, Bo, because that was a serious blunder on his part, and everyone knew it when the game was going on. I mean, Twitter was lighting up. No, everyone was like, what are you doing, man? You got to take your chances right now, because we all know what Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and that offense are going to do. At some point, it's going to happen.
Collin,
I'm pretty sure Scott hammered the in game early in that one.
They did.
They did it more than once too. That's the scary part.
So did Scott. Yeah.
All right, so Call, diehard Bucs fan, obviously. Are there any times when you're upset that the other team is going to kick a field goal? Almost there's a half when it's a 54-yarder and it's okay, all right, they tack on 3 extra points.
Yeah. I'd rather them try Hail Mary. Sure, those are like exceptions though.
Of course, but in general, if your defense holds them to a field goal try every single possession, you're going to win the game. Yeah. If you have a competent offense. I don't know. And if you're playing Mahomes and you don't know that, sorry, I promise everyone listening, we are going to actually break down the Buffalo Bills coming up here, but we obviously all wanted to talk about this AFC championship game. You just can't do that. And like you said, I hope McDermott learns. He had a great season. The Bills had a great season. I don't think he's a bad coach or anything like that in general, but
you would have fired him.
In the biggest, well, yeah. Yeah. All right, got it.
This tyrant Bills owner, Scott Capron, strikes again.
Hey, I grew up about an hour from the Bills stadium. Grew up a diehard Bills fan. I still always want to see them succeed and do well, but I'm not as invested as I once was back in the day. You just can't coach scared, and you especially can't coach scared against one of the best offenses in history, right? So,
exactly.
Hopefully they learn. Hopefully they have another great season. I mean, we're going to get into it here. I do like them to win the division at -150. I think they're the best team. Probably a natural statistical regression from Josh Allen this year, just because he was so ridiculous last year. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll play worse. It's just hard to replicate numbers in football like that, right? So, but I still think they're the best team. I think they have the best roster. I love their balance. Having a number one guy like Diggs, Beasley was amazing for them last year. They have a couple guys to give the ball to, a couple running backs, obviously with Singletary, and oh god, I'm blanking on the other guy.
Zach Moss.
Yeah.
Zach Moss. Okay, I like them. I'm not a huge. I'm admittedly as big a Josh Allen skeptic as you can find, because I watch him and think he looks like a serial killer out there. Like, what are you doing? But it works, and they've figured out a way to maximize him, or at least they did last year. And if they can rein him in that much more and make him that much more efficient as a result, then they're going to win this division.
Yeah, Josh Allen is funny, eh? It's like you're never fully comfortable, like I imagine as a Bills fan. Now, he certainly, like, part of why he did so well is because he limited his mistakes. But, like, the previous year, 2019, I think it was, were they playing Houston in the playoffs? And it was like he ate mushrooms at halftime.
Yeah.
And then starts, like, it was unbelievable. Him, like, laterally the ball to no one.
I was on them, watching him. Yeah.
It was like first down or something. He lateraled the ball to no one.
Oh, sorry. Can I just quick hilarious story about that specific game? All right, my one buddy Jay, who is a absolute diehard Bills fan and Josh Allen defender to the end, but will still recognize when he plays like a psychopath. So the Bills haven't been in the playoffs in forever. They played. You don't know what the schedule is going to be, right? They're playing Houston in that Saturday afternoon game, I think. Yeah. His wife gets him Leafs tickets for him and their son.
Oh.
For that, it literally, the puck dropped and the game kicked off at the exact same time, and his wife's like apologizing, and he's trying not to. Obviously, he's not mad because it was such a thoughtful thing, but he's like, of all the times. He's like, he's not watching the game. He's looking at, he's telling his 4-year-old son, there's 4 minutes into the second period. Yeah, I think we should get out of here. Like,
I feel bad for everyone in that scenario. I feel bad for your buddy Jay. I feel bad for his wife, and of course the kid, because both the parents are probably a little edgy with everything that just happened. And this is a valuable lesson. I love this story. I don't love the story. It's sad, but it's a cautionary tale, because this could happen to anyone. Ladies listening, if you're ever going to get your man, or if you're going to get your girl who's a big sports fan, tickets, always check with their best friend, their go-to person who also follows that team. And
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough. Caitlin has always talked with Jory, who's another like my good buddy, who's a Bucks fan.
Yeah.
Hey, Banks. But like, so you need to be advised by someone before you make that purchase. Make sure there's no conflicts. Because there's nothing worse. She does such a nice thing for him.
Of course, it was a Christmas present, right? Like,
Yeah, that's rough.
He's the greatest dude. Like it was his son's first Leafs game. They actually stayed for the whole time. I was joking about the other, but like just I can just imagine the emotion he had. Like the Bills' first playoff game and how long, right? It's like just so funny because the way he tells it, like he's obviously trying not to complain. Oh my God, I was dying.
Poor guy. Now let's just summarize some of the a couple nice moves the Bills made, simple but good moves. Signing Emmanuel Sanders, slotting him in with Beasley and Diggs, all of a sudden that's a really nice receiving core. Now I'm not acting like Emmanuel Sanders is some difference maker, but he's a really solid veteran receiver. He's somehow managed to play on like 9 teams and never have his credibility as a player called into question. He's always viewed as a good signing, which is funny. But I do think he will be one for them. And I actually really like, and you are hearing this correctly, I really like them signing Trubisky as a backup. I think he fits the scheme there. He can run a good RPO. And just as a backup, as bad as he was as a starter and unreliable, a quality backup quarterback is really important, especially when you have a good team. And I think you could do a lot worse. Shit, man, the Jets should have taken Trubisky or someone who could play. So that's how I feel about that. And the draft, I'm kind of it was fine. Obviously, they felt a glaring need at the edge rusher position. They took Gregory Rousseau out of Miami, just like Jalen Phillips. Wasn't as impressed at all with Gregory Rousseau's tape. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad player by any means, but for a first rounder, I'm really happy we have Joe Tryon over Rousseau, for example. And then they took Carlos Basham Jr. out of Wake Forest. So they use their first 2 picks on edge rushers. So that's clearly an area of need for them, that they want to be a little more aggressive in rushing the passer. And then as a general statement on their team, I love their secondary. They might have the best, along with Denver, some other teams. I love their safeties, especially Jordan Poyer really jumped out at me last season. He's wicked. And then, of course, Micah Hyde is awesome as well. And then you throw in a top 5 corner in Tre'Davious White. I mean, that's pretty filthy to have on the back end of your defense.
Totally. I totally agree with that. Go ahead.
They're one of the best teams in the league. This is, it's so funny because we're going to do these previews and you're so used to picking out holes because there are so many mediocre to bad teams, right? But the Bills are good. They were very good last year and they beat good teams. And no, they didn't play their best game in the AFC Championship game, but it also wasn't they lost 38-6 or anything like that, right? They're right there. And the other thing is, in football, your roster has to turn over every handful of years in order to stay relevant because guys get old, guys get hurt, and contracts are written on toilet paper, right? So the rosters change so quickly. But if you were good last year, you can be good 1 year later with a similar team, right? All right, maybe let's see what happens this year. Then you have to make some more changes. But the fact that they didn't have to shake up anything too much, I don't disagree with that. I know you're always trying to get better. But they're good. And if Allen can make another step, take another step, I should say, who knows? They should win the division and have a great shot at getting back to the AFC title game, I would say.
I'd like to take a moment to just kind of publicly express how impressive of a season Stephon Diggs had. In the offseason, the Cardinals stole DeAndre Hopkins for such a minuscule trade haul. And then I think the Bills gave up. What did they give up? They gave up a lot more. I don't have it in front of me. If one of you guys could look up the exact trade package, that'd be helpful. That the Bills gave up to get Stephon Diggs. But regardless, I was like, shit, why didn't they just give that up for DeAndre Hopkins? And I like Stephon Diggs, but I did not think he was as elite as he proved to be, leading the league in yards and receptions last season. He was incredible, man. He proved to be a complete receiver, like red zone threat. He'll go over the middle. He can beat you deep. He's tough as shit, not afraid to block, runs polished routes, like left guys in his dust all the time. Me and Bo, we were riding him pretty hard. He was one of our go-to for our player prop bets. You got to throw him in there with Travis Kelce and Alvin Kamara and Devin White for the guys who are the most profitable for us. But yeah, man, shit, did I enjoy watching him. He won me 2 fantasy leagues that I had no business winning in the last game of the regular season. I am eternally grateful and indebted to Stephon Diggs, and I think he's the real deal, and he proved that this year.
I have a soft spot for any of the big name recruits that stay home. Like, not that he went to Delaware State or anything like that. But he went to Maryland because that's where he's from. He could have went anywhere in the country. He's one of the biggest receivers. And he did it there. He was awesome. Got drafted. He's been awesome. He should have won them the Cardinals game if it wasn't for that the Hail
Mary,
right?
Yeah.
And that was another Bills win that just literally got stolen from them, right?
Yeah, true. Shit, they shouldn't have lost that game.
No,
they'd have been 14-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that. They were 96.7% win percentage or win probability going into that drive.
Yeah.
They should not have lost that game.
Yeah, because Diggs in the corner of the end zone, right? He ran that sharp out, like a slant and out or whatever, right? Is that what? And then there was very limited time on it.
Yeah, but 25 seconds. It was a great throw, great route, and it looked like it ended the game, and it should have. But, anyway.
To the Bills' credit, though, they took that loss, went on their bye week, and rung off 6 wins right after that. They were really good. And just to go back to the whole Josh Allen thing, I was listening to Mina Kimes' podcast. Josh Allen was went absolutely nuts last year, right? A lot of people for the full season overview had him as the 3rd best quarterback. Not to take anything away from Tom Brady, but everyone had him behind Rodgers and Mahomes as the 3rd best quarterback in the power rankings, not the Super Bowl rankings, the ones that actually count. But
going into this upcoming season, or just based off last year's performance?
Off of going into the playoffs last year.
Oh God, yes, of course.
Yeah,
so would I.
Absolutely, yeah. Brady had a little bit of a slower start to the season, and Josh Allen was just nuts from the very start. And I say all that to say, Josh Allen was never that guy. He was never that guy at Wyoming. There's a question if he's ever had a year like that throwing the football ever. Even in high school, I can't imagine that he had put up those type of numbers. That's how unbelievable he was last year. So I think it's right to be okay, there might be a little bit of a regression here, but even if they get 80-90% of Josh Allen, that's still a really good football team.
Yeah, I mean, Bo, I was watching tape from when he was 12, when he was on the Orange team, and he was only mediocre then. So,
he's running the ball. He was much more of a running quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. He seemed to be more into his Dunkaroos and stuff. That might have been an age thing. But if you're right though, if they get 80 to 90% of what they did last year, and you shore up some other things, they're going to be in the mix to make another run for sure. Without looking, or if you guys haven't looked, what number, you don't have to say the odds, but where on the list of betting favorites do you think Josh Allen is for the MVP? I just looked it up, and it was interesting.
I'd bet in the top 10.
I was gonna say even higher than that. I was gonna say somewhere in the top 5. I was gonna guess 5.
Yeah, 3rd. It's
Mahomes.
Wow. It's Mahomes, Rodgers, Josh Allen, Tom Brady. He plays for the Bucs. And then Lamar and Russell and Stafford are actually tied for 5th in the odds.
I'm going to bet Stafford, man. I've been just thinking more. I think about it. Stafford is going to rip it this year. That poor guy just stuck in purgatory. But we don't.
The best part about that is we never wanted to bet the Lions anyway.
Yeah.
Even with him. Yeah. But now we don't want to with Goff being there. We never wanted to bet the Rams with Goff, but now we get another team to bet on with Stafford.
You're right. Yeah. It's a new bettable team because you couldn't bet on the only thing I'd bet on the Rams would be if I would double dip and bet Robert Woods and
or the Super Bowl when we were all in Vegas. We bet on the Rams.
That doesn't count. We don't talk about that because that was just I don't know what the betting term is for it, Scott, but that was just action to have action that wasn't on the Pats. Stupid. I can't believe you just aired that out, Bo.
Oh my God.
I'm just the listeners want to know. They need to know.
Hey man, Gronk receptions was set at like 2.5 that game. It wasn't juicy, but his reception over 2.5 receptions was tasty.
I don't remember one play from that game.
Yeah, there were no
a lot of food and drinks.
Watching how many beet salads our friend could eat before halftime was the most entertaining aspect.
What a psycho! And I'm not even saying that from like a super drunk perspective. Like, yeah, obviously we were, but I just mean like from watching that game. Like, I remember once Goff had someone down the sideline near the end of the fourth quarter and missed him. That's it. That's all I got from that whole Super Bowl.
I feel like Edelman made a big catch at some point.
Yeah. Anyway.
Which resort were we even in watching that game? I don't know. It all seems connected.
Grand.
MGM.
Yeah. Liberty and Social. We hope you have us back again.
Best pizza salads on the strip. That's why we flew down.
Yes. All right. Cool. Well, I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to hit on specifically about the Bucks? I feel like we covered it, the Bills. I feel like we covered it pretty well there.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say is like I think their running game just to alleviate some of the pressure off of Josh Allen and him having to be that unbelievable quarterback this year. Maybe getting more than 7 explosive plays out of your 2 running backs would be nice.
Yeah, and I think throwing the ball to the running back is something Buffalo doesn't utilize enough, and I think it's an important element of an offense to develop if you don't have it. And I think between Zach Moss, Singletary can catch the ball. It just seems like they never give him really a chance. So
part of that's on Josh Allen. He'll just extend the play and look for digs because he's not looking for he's never dumping it down.
You're right. It probably is all on Josh Allen.
We didn't give Singletary enough love. Singletary's good.
I hope he is, yeah.
The Bills don't seem to think so, though. They draft Zach Moss right after, and they're handing the reins to him, it seems. Like he's going to be getting more of that chunk of the carry. So I also thought Singletary had a phenomenal rookie season. I thought he was going to be their guy.
Everything that I'm reading is that they're looking to run the ball more this year, and that Zach Moss is the guy that's going to be getting the bulk of the carries. So I think there's still like a 2 running back approach, but Zach Moss is basically the guy that they're saying, okay, this thing is either going to happen with him or not at all.
Similar backfield situation to the Bucks. Obviously, not the same star power necessarily in terms of the name value as Fournette and Ronald Jones, but it's 2 guys who don't excel at catching the ball, but 2 strong runners who are going to be more or less competing or working in tandem to generate the bulk of the rushing yards for their team this year on a very competitive team. Okay, so
wait. Last thing on the Bills, they already had a fight in OTAs. John Feliciano got into it with AJ Epineza off of a pick 6. So a defensive lineman pick 6. Feliciano runs into the end zone and throws a punch at him. So
at least Epineza finally made a play.
Yeah, exactly. I actually think this is a good sign for their team.
Dude, all coaches want players to fight in practice, man. It just it doesn't. Not even just in football. Like my university basketball coach, he told me recently, he's like, "You would have made the team even sooner if you just scrapped one of our starters." Like that's what I was looking for. I'm not even kidding.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a fact. Anyway, so how do we see? I mean, anyone want to shock anyone here? The way I have this division finishing 1 through 4, I got, of course, the Bills first. Second, I got the Dolphins. Third, I got the Pats. And fourth, I got the Jets. That's chalk, though. It looks like I just checked the odds, and that is chalk. But that's what I'm going with.
I can shock you. I've got Pats top. I got them winning the same amount of games. I got the Pats in their best case scenario with 12-5, and Bills with their worst case scenario with 12-5.
Whoa!
And then the Pats beating them during the year for the tiebreaker. And then I've got the Dolphins and I got the Jets.
The hot take, saving it for the end, though.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna bet on the infrastructure. Just hope that Bill Belichick knows more about football than I do, and that he's going to figure out a way to run that 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends.
Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much he knows if he doesn't have a quarterback who can't throw it over 12 yards.
Well, I've got Cam Newton just completely destroying their future with Mac Jones and just making it so that they can't actually get a rebuild going in New England.
if Belichick knows as much as he thinks he does, he would tell you to bet on the Dolphins to finish ahead of them. So there you go. Boom. I have the same order. I mean, I could be convinced to, like, if someone wanted to say that the Pats were 9-8 and the Dolphins were 8-9, sure. But I would go Bills, Dolphins, Pats, and the Jets, Jets.
So there you have it. That is our breakdown of the AFC East division. This is the second divisional preview that we have done so far. We'll be putting these out, not necessarily on a regular schedule, but once every week or 2 weeks, you'll get one of these sandwiched between our regular Monday night 7 p.m. Eastern time slot we have with Bucks Report. So make sure you catch us this upcoming Monday at 7 p.m. if you're available. If you want to catch it live, we'd love to get engagement from the audience there. You can watch that on our YouTube channel, our Twitter page, which is at Bucks Banter, or on Bucks Report Facebook. That's where tons of comments come into their YouTube channel. So it's all over the place. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Bucks Banter. Where can we find you guys? For anyone who wants to give you guys a follow, let them know.
Yeah, I'm at Bo Knows Ball, BOH Knows Ball. Come check out what I've got going on over there. Hopefully a little bit more basketball content the next few weeks, but we're going to get into football as well as the season comes along. So be over there.
Absolutely. I'm at Captain Ron on Twitter.
Cap_10_Ron.
Yeah, Twitter. I should probably change it.
No one's going to find you if you don't tell
them.
Yeah,
yeah. That's true.
It doesn't seem like he's too concerned, though. He's playing hard to get, folks.
He's got a blue check mark already. He's good.
Yeah.
He's not playing hard to get visually, though, if you see what he's wearing, just on the audio.
I literally, I had to paint the blue check mark onto my phone in order for the certified to come up. So if that counts, then sign me up. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to filling you in on the next episode of the Bucks Banter podcast. Really appreciate you listening, and until next time.
Hey, Banks.